Hello, good evening and welcome to In Focus. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that Israel's military has temporarily seized control of a demilitarized buffer zone in the occupied Golan Heights in yet another escalation by the occupying power. Also, Israeli occupation forces bombed a school housing displaced people in Jabalia, prompting UNRWA to promote its efforts to prevent the children of Gaza from becoming a lost generation. But for now, let's start with the latest developments in Syria. For the first time since 1974, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that Israel's military has temporarily seized control of a demilitarized buffer zone in the occupied Golan Heights. Israeli troops were deployed beyond the buffer zone, which was established by the 1974 Separation of Forces Agreement between Israel and Syria. Netanyahu said he ordered his forces to enter the buffer zone and commanding positions nearby to the Israeli-occupied part of the Golan. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar described this as a temporary move until the security situation along the border stabilizes. After yesterday's developments, the Kremlin announced that Russia granted political asylum to Bashar al-Assad and his family after a decision made by President Vladimir Putin. While the Kremlin noted that Putin has no immediate plans to meet Assad, it described the next phase in Syria as challenging due to the instability. The Kremlin also plans to discuss the future of Russian bases in Syria with the country's new authorities. Meanwhile, Syrian Prime Minister Mohammed Ghezi Jalali, who remained in his post after Assad's fall, has tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. Ghazi said that most cabinet ministers are still working from offices in Damascus. He also said that the government is coordinating with all factions in an effort to create a path toward a united and peaceful Syria. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has announced that his administration will collaborate with partners in Syria to manage risks and seize opportunities. Speaking at the White House, Biden confirmed US support for Syria's neighbors during the transition and stressed that Assad should be held accountable. He finished by noting that Syria is in a period of uncertainty. The Washington Post has reported that the United States is considering delisting Hayat Tahrir al-Sham from its terrorist organizations to promote stability in Syria. An American official cited in the report said the move is under serious evaluation, including HTS's independence from Turkey. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has expressed support for Syrians seeking a peaceful future. Scholz emphasized the possibility of a national dialogue, orderly transition, and political solution to the conflict. Speaking in Berlin, Scholz stated that Germany, alongside international partners and in line with UN Security Council resolutions, would contribute to this effort. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called on the Syrian people to seize the opportunity for peace after 14 years of war. He emphasized that Syria's future should be determined by Syrians, with the support of Special Envoy Geir Pedersen. Guterres urged a peaceful political transition and respect for human rights, highlighting the need for international support. He also stressed the importance of preserving Syria's sovereignty, unity and territorial integrity while honouring those affected by the conflict. Peterson echoed calls for protecting civilians and institutions. The UN Security Council is to convene for an emergency session on the situation in Syria today, following the fall of the Assad regime. The emergency session, called by Russia, will be held behind closed doors as world and regional powers call for stability in the civil war-racked Middle Eastern country. China's foreign ministry has called for a swift political solution in Syria. She added that the political solution aims to restore stability after armed groups seized the capital and the president fled to Russia. The spokesperson, Mao Ning, urged all parties to prioritize the Syrian people's interests and emphasized that China is closely monitoring the situation during her regular briefing. And to discuss these developments further, we are joined now from Cairo on the phone by Mohammed Abu Shama, a journalist and political writer. Welcome to Q News. So we've had the seizure of the buffer zone with Syria by Israel. How does this violate Syrian sovereignty and breach that disengagement agreement?
To start, I'd like to salute you and thank you for having me. No doubt that the Israeli aggression that started yesterday in the southern area of Syria that exceeded the borders of El Julan to about 10 kilometers. And I think that represents a gross violation to the first engagement agreement that signed by the two sides following the 1973 war that signed in 1974, and the two parties abided for several years. In total, the state of Israel that broke this engagement agreement more than one time and made a lot of aggressions through an airstrike within Syria, on top of which the following year, following an Al-Aqsa flood operation, but exceeding the separated line of the agreement, I think it is a gross violation to the international laws, and it is well known for Israelis that exceeded the international conventions, but this time exploited the current situation in Syria and in the fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime, and employed a matter for her interest to transfer the border point and to occupy the separated point or posts between the two countries, and considers a violation for Syria's sovereignty that cannot be overcome. And I think that the Egyptian government stated by the foreign minister to reject this aggression and considered it a gross violation to the international conventions, and it is unacceptable, the same as the Arab countries, and naturally the Syrian people which lives in precautious for the upcoming days with respect to the future of Syria, amid of the current events that cause turmoil, that require, or rather a result, this gross aggression from the Israeli side. And it's not only for the Arab community that reject, and I think the whole world would the free world rejected such aggressions, and I think they are condemned, and we hope that this matter should be escalated whether internationally through the international community, the UN Security Council, to take what is the appropriate measures as the State of Israel did in this very sensitive fire as an exploitation to the turmoil state of Syria that currently live.
Now, Egypt has said that Israel is exploiting the current instability to occupy more land and create a new reality on the ground. Do you think that Israel is exploiting the current situation?
I agree with the statement. Israel, in fact, exploiting this matter and is trying to establish a reality in light of the Syrian circumstances that upfolded the fall of Bashar al-Assad regime through more than 40 years. They've been hostile and animosity that's for a long time under a provocative pretext to secure its border, as the fall of the regime naturally would affect the military matters, specifically in the upcoming days, with respect to Israel and Syria, as the new regime, a new government, in light of the state of chaos that Syria used to live for years, and sharing the borders, and Syria, as you all know, is scattered. All these opportunities give Israel the pretext to take this distance and to annex to its border. Also, there is a great encouragement from the US administration for such behavior that pose a risk for the Arab security and the regional security, as the statement from the elected President Trump that he's ambitious to add the space of Israel, that encourages Israel, whether what they annexed from Syria or claimed intentions to include some parts of the West Bank. These are Israeli proclaims that are null to annex Arab territories, as we used from Israel to take the Arab territories by creating a reality. I think what they did in Syria is a part from its policy that practices through decades since occupied Palestine established their state, and it's going to do this, and also doing some attempts in Gaza. There is a great desire from Israel to expand and under the proclaim and to achieve the security for the Israeli citadel and their inhabitants. And these claims establish the obsession of lands regularly. That's what happened yesterday in the south of Syria and the borders that represent a violation of the disengagement agreement.
Now, do you think that stability in Syria is achievable? And if it is achievable, in your view, how long might that take?
To achieve stability in Syria will take more time, naturally, as Syria is based on several political contradiction, and it's a multi-confessional Syria being oppressed for years. And I think that some chaos would take place due to the lack of security and the lack of the state authority, that it would take some time for regaining stability in Syria in order to be capable to control through the borders, and then to move to the phase of negotiation with Israel to regain the Syrian territories that Syria is suffering with the presence from Russian, Turkish, and American troops. Syria is in dire need to a process of purification from the foreign troops and to get the Syrian rights to the Syrian people. And we hope that the primarily statement from the armed groups to give opportunities for all Syrians and create a democratic life and lead the Syrians to participate in management and to achieve peace and security for the Syrian people suffering for decades that caused displacement, demolition in the infrastructure and these institutions, and the lack of the minimum of the means of life. In addition to great numbers of refugees throughout the whole world, among which Egypt and an occupant to the Syrian refugees, if they have a goodwill that generate the effective roles, and this is the only way to get out of this crisis and to regain its capability to control throughout the geographic of Syria, to regain all territories and to be within the neighboring country naturally, as it was in a very important Arab countries and very effective for the national security in the Arab region. And it is one of the most important Arab countries that we are very grieved to what they going through, and we hope to overcome this period through the or the lineup of the opposition and to get out of such an extended crisis.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. That was the journalist and political writer Mohammed Abu Shama. Thank you very much for being here with us on our program. Now let's get the most recent updates in Gaza. Gaza now, where several Palestinians have been killed and others are injured after Israeli occupation forces bombed a school housing displaced people in Jabalia camp in northern Gaza. Palestinian media also reported that the occupation air force targeted a residential area in the vicinity of the Kamal Adwan hospital. Meanwhile, UNRWA's Commissioner General Felipe Lazzarini has said that the organization is trying to prevent Gaza's children from becoming a lost generation amid the ongoing humanitarian crisis. Lazzarini called for a ceasefire in Gaza, a crucial step to restore educational facilities. He also noted that the escalation in Lebanon has affected the education of Palestinian refugees. He added that the escalation in Lebanon, as we just said, has disrupted the school year, affecting education services that the agency has provided for decades. Now, for more on this, we go to Ramallah, and we're joined by Dr. Abdul Nasser Mei, a political science professor. Thank you very much for being here with us on Q News. What is your comment on the recent Israeli bombing of the school in Jabalia camp?
I think this is one of the, this is not something new for the Israeli, what they are doing in Gaza. This is from about 14 months. They are bombing Gaza. And also at the same time, when they exposed to attack from, that's Hamas in Gaza, they will act as, that's aggressive. Because today they announced that two soldiers have been killed in refugee in Jabalia. So the irritation of the reaction of the Israeli is bombing Gaza, and also they are not respect even the hospitals. They bombed, as you know, Kamal Adwan hospitals, and also all the hospitals now in Gaza. Is some of them they are not working. There is no fuel, and also there is no doctors there, and many thousands of people have been killed and have been burned under now their body in the streets. So this is something horrible in Gaza. You are talking about 14 months or more for killing and genocide in Gaza.
And UNRWA, of course, has said that they are going to make efforts to prevent Gaza's children from becoming a lost generation. Do you think these efforts could succeed amid the ongoing violence?
I don't think so that will be their efforts will be, that's even enough, because under this, circumstances and the conditions, the UNRWA, as you know, they are forbidden to work even in Gaza because of the Israeli of their decisions that the UNRWA is like terror, so they are not allowed to UNRWA to work there, and also even there is some assistance going to Gaza, but until now, as you know, uh, it's not enough. You are talking about thousands of children. They've lost their family. Thousands of children have been out of the schools, and now they are lost, and they need horrible. They need, much of the assistance in order to that they could that live in these circumstances and go ahead in their life. So if it is not going to be like international community assistance from all the world for these topics, I don't think that it will be help. Just a small things, and it will not support the children of Gaza to that even to observe these shocks that have been exposed from 14 or 15 months in Gaza.
Of course, Syria's future remains uncertain in these early days. What do you make of Netanyahu's recent order to seize control of the buffer zone in the Golan Heights?
Look, Netanyahu now want to say that his attack against Hezbollah and Iran have, they have results. And the result that he said about is that there is a revolution against Assad, and now this revolution and the rebellion, they came from south, north of Syria, and now they are in Damascus. What Netanyahu is that to say that he had victory, even it's not a victory in Gaza or in Lebanon. He want to send message to the Israeli, that the Israeli community, that he did something, and because of this, he went to High Golan there, and also he occupied some of the isolation land, which was under the Syrian, control. By this message, Netanyahu want to say that we are there, and he will now wait. He's just waiting to see to know what will happen in Syria. What is this new revolution will do, and especially in the relationship with Israel.
This doesn't, do you think, signal a new focus for Netanyahu, this seizing of control of the Golan Heights, a new priority for his military actions?
It is one of the priority from Netanyahu, as you know, because now Netanyahu is focusing on the deal in Gaza, And I think, according to the last news, that there is a progress and advance in the deal for the prisoners and the hostages in Gaza. And now Netanyahu is even many of his ministers, they said that, like Jadon Saar, the Minister of Foreign, that there is a progress. So now the Israeli cabinet, they will meet tonight, and also I think Netanyahu will discuss the deal of the hostages and the prisoners with
Okay.
Hamas.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Abdul Nasser Mehi, joining us from Ramallah. Thank you so much, a political science professor. Thank you for your views today. And that brings us to the end of this episode of In Focus. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.